This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about a bunch more Xbox games coming to PS5, more Bloodborne remastered hopium, Nintendo confirming new games are still coming to Switch, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 70. I am your host, the man who spent more time fighting a spinning turbine as a frog than fighting Genova, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who has confirmed he will be releasing both on the Switch and the Switch 2, Justin, better known as I'm Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
This week's been largely uneventful. Not too much has really happened. I guess essentially we've been going through at work all our annual evaluations and stuff. So I had mine this past over the near the end of last week, and then got that over. Although I guess just in time for having my normal monthly check-in. So. Those were fine. Those were pretty simple enough. And I guess as a good news for us, though, for my team, we're hiring some people, which is great to help with some of the workload, especially since we're most likely going to be receiving newer projects coming in the near future. So to help out with that, we'll definitely need the extra hands coming in. But yeah, other than that, not really too much has been going on with me.
Cool. Let's see here. What has been my week? Pretty sick through... I think I was starting to feel better probably sometime Saturday is when I was finally starting to feel better. Because like Thursday and Friday were pretty miserable. But yeah, Saturday I was feeling quite a bit better, and then Sunday I felt a lot better. And apart from occasionally having to deal with a cough, it hasn't been any. I haven't had any problems since, so I've been good for that. Let's see here. I feel like there's something. Today both my wife and oldest son seem to have caught some kind of stomach thing. And it's not like a typical stomach bug where they're, dealing with all that stuff all day. It was just more like uncomfortable feeling in their stomach, and both of them threw up, but it was only like once each. But either way, neither one of them has felt very good today, so it's been unfortunately not great for them. I'm hoping none of us catch it, but yeah. Because we had a chili competition at work on Tuesday, I ended up working Tuesday, Wednesday in the office. So I did win again, except this time it was tied. There was one other person who won, and her chili was great too. Like I really liked her chili. And mine was not my best batch either. So even if it had been, hers was great. Like if I was on the road and was craving chili and I could get chili that good at a restaurant, I would be a happy camper because hers was really good. So, but yeah, so that was good. We're doing music this week, mostly because the guy who's normally on the schedule to do it, unfortunately, is just super busy right now. Like he's basically working 7 days a week, so I offered to go ahead and cover for him, especially because I'm, feeling well again, so there's no reason why I can't. So just need to kind of finalize the list. I basically have the list. I just need to kind of rearrange stuff because when I made up the list, it was before we remember that we have communion this Sunday, and so that will require a little bit of rearranging and that sort of thing, but we'll practice on Saturday and play on Sunday, so it works. I don't think there's really anything else. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting about because there usually is. But yeah, I don't know. So,
Well, I'm definitely.
all right, go ahead.
Oh no, so I'm definitely glad that you're feeling much better, though. Definitely, sucks to be sick, and I hope that whatever your family has is something that is healed quickly.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is it'll probably just be an overnight thing, and I'm sure they'll be fine tomorrow. But yeah, I'm hoping I don't get anything, but I guess we'll just wait and see. Plus side is I'm working from home the next 2 days anyway, so it's not really a big deal from that standpoint. Even if I was feeling off and if I wasn't eating, it's not like it would hurt me to not eat, So, but anyway, what have you been playing this past week?
All right, so I went back with my buddies and we played some more Factorio. I didn't really play too much with them just because I didn't have as much time. So when I jumped in, they had already left the planets that we were last working on. However, just as I boot up the game, suddenly the spider eggs that we had been using, we had essentially been farming just to get nutrients from them. They had been rapidly hatching, which shouldn't be happening at all. And it turns out that there had been a shortage somewhere on our assembly line that prevented us from getting the nutrients over to them before they could hatch. So fortunately, since I was still on the planet, I was able to quickly just like rearrange things and start shifting the flow of some items here and there, so that way we could get things working again and prevent anything else from that from happening. And then by the time I caught back up with them on the planet they were on, essentially the planet that they're on is just Antarctica. It's just a small patch of land, a frozen land over the water. And so there are no resources there, and everything we need to actually start mining, we just have to import from all the other planets we've been to so far. So that's a bit slow. But they're slowly making progress on that end. But yeah, that's how things have been going with that. Now, because of our discussion last week, I went back and played some Doom 2016. Now, I was trying to remember all the controls going on, and unfortunately, for some strange reason, because of the way the settings were, the gyro wasn't working the way it had been working before. Whereas with it works as long as you have your thumb on the right joystick.
Right.
For some reason, it's just completely free roaming, and it's always active, which is odd. And I'm not certain how to correct that, because it seems it's just gyro's great, but when I don't want the camera to move when I'm moving my Steam Deck, it's a bit annoying, and it's very hard to get things properly aligned, especially if I'm trying to do platforming, which is another thing. So I got to the point where you get the I forgot what they're called, but essentially they give you the double jump ability. And so at that point, it was a bit hard, because that's when you're going to start doing some platforming, jumping up around the narrow passage, up the narrow bridges and stuff. That made it a bit difficult, because I'm trying to get around enemies who are shooting me from a distance while also trying to focus on the camera to get up on ledges and stuff. And I fell several times because of the fact that the camera was moving when I was accidentally moving my Steam Deck, and that got me killed several times. But slowly getting the hang of things. Not certain if I'll jump back into the game fully and keep playing on right now, but it was nice to come back to it after being on a break from that for a while. But the main thing I've been playing is some more Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. And initially, when I was playing it, I really just wanted to just kill some time here and there, and also try to work on getting stuff for achievements. But as I was playing on, I eventually thought, why not? I'll just keep playing some more. And eventually what happened was I finished up Ventus's storyline, which I will say the final boss fights for Ventus, I felt like I had more trouble than I should have,
Mm.
especially compared with Terra, because Terra, I didn't really have too much of a problem with him with his final boss fight. In
Yeah.
fact, I was able to get it technically both fights done in one attempt.
Mm.
But with Ventus, it took me several, probably about 3 or 4 attempts with the first fight.
Mm-hmm.
Second fight, I was able to get through, but then I didn't realize there was a quick time event essentially after that part, and so I messed up several times, and that got me killed. But just to get past for the first phase, though, I had to end up doing a little bit more grinding than I thought necessary. So, like, for example, with Terra, I finished the game probably about level 34, I think. But with Ventus, it was level 42. But right now, I'm on Aqua, and I was very surprised because I thought since she's more magic-based, it would be disappointing to play as her since I'm not a magic-based type of player.
Mm-hmm.
But she actually is very well to play as. And I mean, personally, she's much better as to play at. She's better to play as than Ventus, because I thought Ventus was going to be the best one since he's more so, I guess, akin to playing as Sora or Roxas or anything like that. But his gameplay kind of felt the weakest to me because he didn't deal as much damage as Terra did, but at the same time, his magic wasn't necessarily as strong as Aqua. So it felt like a very weird middle where he just didn't seem to really fit in for me personally.
Yeah.
And the only thing he really had going for him was just his glide ability. But yeah, so right now I'm about halfway, I would say, through Aqua's storyline.
Nice.
Just been going through that, and also trying to actually try to make attempts at actually filling up all of my collection. So trying to get all of the different skill sets and different commands. And I have a chart pulled up on I think it's like a Google Doc file from one of the achievement lists I've seen, where I've just been going around trying to level up commands and also try to craft new ones. So I'll try to get new skills, because those will also help me with just getting through the game. But then also for one skill, you can get XP just by walking, so that makes leveling up a whole lot easier in a sense, since you're constantly walking around. And then also it helps with leveling up your abilities as well. So yeah, that's essentially where I've been with that so far. I will say this though, story-wise though, initially I put more blame on Master LegenZ for events, but after playing through Ventus' storyline, I'm going to put more blame on Master Ericus, just because he really should have seen a whole lot of this stuff coming, and getting that perspective in Ven's storyline made me think, oh, we could have prevented so much of what happens in this game if Ericus just stepped up. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time remembering exactly, like, my specific thoughts on all the characters. My best recollection, noting that it's been like 13, 14 years since I played through Birth by Sleep, was that maybe because of the order I played in, because I started with Ventus and then played Terra and then played Aqua, that I thought all three characters were great from that standpoint. Like, it was all just, they were all very different. But like, I legitimately couldn't tell you for sure which one I liked the best, because it's been so long. But yeah, and going back to Doom, I know that the gyro setting, you have to set it so that it's only activated when it's on the touch. Is that what the actual setting is, or you just don't remember how to change that?
Initially, it was set up to just be it was just set up to activate upon touch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain what happened. Now, granted, I will say that there were several changes that happened that I don't remember. For example, the API was switched back to OpenGL instead of Vulkan. So when I first started playing the game, it was, of course, laggy, and it was dropping below even 50 FPS.
Right.
So I don't know what happened at some point. I don't know if it was a system update that had changed the settings, but I could always go back and check and see if the settings need to be fixed for the gyro.
Yeah, I'll check real quick and see what my settings are so I can tell you specifically, because I could probably tell you that, and then it would be easy enough for me to tell you what you need to have. So, of course, gyro needs to be set as joystick. Let's see here. And see here, so gyro. Let's see here. That's what I don't remember how I got that activated, because I know I have it activated, but let's see if I can find it here. View layout. Let's see here. Okay, so yeah, gyro as joystick, and gyro activation is either the right touchpad or the right joystick, and you have to hold to enable gyro. Because
Okay.
as long as you set it to hold, then it will only be active when you have your thumb on the actual stick itself or on the touchpad.
Okay. And this was through the in-game settings or just the
Through the controller settings.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely check that out then.
Yeah, and I think with the stuttering, I mean, it could very well be that the settings just got messed up. So I feel like I've had that happen to me before, where it was all off, and I feel like it might have even just pulled whatever settings I had on my PC over, but it doesn't normally do that. So I don't know. It's been a while since I had that problem, so I couldn't say with absolute certainty. But I know that when I had reinstalled it more recently, actually, I don't think I ever uninstalled it now that I think about it. I think I kept it installed, but that, you know, my settings were exactly where I wanted to be, and I was easily able to maintain 60 frames per second at all times with pretty high settings. I think might have even been all high settings. I don't remember exactly, but yeah. So either way, definitely glad you got to play a bit more of that, and even though I could tell you were struggling a bit with how the gyro was acting for you in your gameplay, it's still better than JTech's gameplay, so kudos to you from that standpoint, I guess. Well, as for me, so first of all, I'm going to get out of the way the smaller things. I did end up grabbing Dino Crisis and tried it out on the Steam Deck. With Dino Crisis, in order to get it running, I think I'm trying to remember what exactly I had to do with it. There was something a little weird that I had to do in order to get it actually to boot up. Once you get it booting up, it's fine. But I didn't play a lot. I played like maybe 20-30 minutes, something like that. It has tank controls, as I figured it would, which, of course, I'm terrible with tank controls. I think that if I was ever going to try and play something like this, I would just need to practice the tank controls in order to be able to, like, really use them properly. Because I was doing terrible, and like the gameplay that's being shown here, I was struggling, and then of course initially, like, I couldn't remember how to get like get my gun out so that I could fire at the dinosaur that was attacking me, and I was having trouble with movement. And because it's only D-pad, I mean, it's basically D-pad controls, like it doesn't have any analog controls at all. And so you have to hold a button to run, which I guess I could realistically map to one of the back buttons, and that would help. But I'm just not used to tank controls at all. Like I think it's stupid that they ever implemented that for characters, for actual people. Like, it makes sense to do it for a tank, even if I don't particularly like it, but for a person, it doesn't make any sense, and it's stupid. And I maintain that. Like, I just as a side rant. So, I don't know if you've ever played Parasite Eve on the original PlayStation. The first Parasite Eve game was not tank controls. It was, you just moved whatever direction you pressed on the D-pad, and as a result, the game was really, really good, and it was a fantastic RPG, highly recommended. But with Parasite Eve 2, they switched to tank controls, and as a result, I've never really gotten anywhere with it. And eventually, I do want to, go back to it. I had, like, last year or something, booted it up on the Vita and was trying to figure out those controls, but yeah. Anyway. Going back to Dino Crisis. So, you have to use some kind of mod in order to get above the locked 30 frames per second. Which is dumb. I'm hoping that that's something GOG will fix in the future, because they've done that with other games, like with Dragon Age Origins. They have some of those mods that you need in order to run the game on a modern system, to boot it up properly. They have those already patched in, but they don't seem to have anything for higher frame rates patched into this version of Dino Crisis. So hopefully that's something that they'll fix in the future, and then I'll just be able to get a patch installed and actually play at a higher frame rate when I'm ready to really play it. But yeah, I didn't play a lot. I like the idea of the game, and I think I probably would have been much more wanting to play it if it wasn't for the tank controls and just how bad I am at them. But we'll just kind of see what happens. Either way, I wanted to check it out, so I did, and I'll still keep it in my library. And then another game that I started playing tonight, only because of one of the stories that we'll be discussing later, is Snake Pass. And this is a game that I originally played on the Switch when it released. I think it would have been 2017. And I really, really enjoyed it on the Switch. 100% of the game. Then eventually I got it again on Steam and 100% of the game again. And so I played just a little bit this evening to record some footage. All right, so when I was playing this evening, this is a game that I had wanted to get all the achievements in the past on Steam, but some of them just were bugged, like they weren't popping for me in the past. And so some of the ones that I should have had, like having 100% on all the levels and various other related ones, I had never popped for me. So I just figured, oh, okay, well, I might as well try working on a couple of the achievements that I didn't already have. So I did one of the really simple ones. As soon as I popped that one, then all the other ones that I had previously earned but had not popped for me all popped at the same time. So I had like 6 achievements pop all at once. But and then I think I knocked out like 2 more this evening because they were fairly simple. But yeah, I really like Snake Pass. It's honestly, it was one of those games that, like, when I first saw it, I thought, okay, this looks kind of cool, interesting, and different. And then when I played it, I just really loved it. Has good music too. So yeah. But of course, I played a bunch of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Right now, story-wise, and this isn't a spoiler or anything, but I just made it to Casa del Sol. The stuff leading up to it, including all the stuff in like Upper Junon, was similar, but definitely different from what it was. It was, you know, there was more to it than what you had in the original game, and the parade stuff where you have to like match the motions and everything else, way easier in Rebirth, even though it's much longer of a sequence. It's if you have, I don't think you've gotten to it yet in Remake, but there is a sequence that is in the Sector 5, Sector 5 slums, that has to do with the original Don Corneo sequence, that wasn't in the original game, or rather this particular thing that you do. So I guess I should ask, first of all, were you at that point? Are you at that point yet where you've gotten to the Don Corneo stuff yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
So I'm not going to talk too much about that. I personally, I mean, apart from like the stuff that, you know, is just as awkward as it was in the first game, in the original game, the final portion of that sequence, I still think was fantastic. In Remake, I enjoyed it a lot. But basically, there is a rhythm-like mini game that you do towards the end of that is very similar. I mean, is also something you do something similar for the parade stuff in Rebirth. So that's about the extent of what I'll say. But yeah, I'm still really enjoying the game. I did a couple things to like improve some visual stuff. Still about the same in terms of performance and all that. I don't think I play it at all on the Steam Deck since last week. I've basically just been playing on my PC when I've been playing. And yeah, I mean, this year, I think what I just finished was chapter 5, I believe. I don't know how many chapters there are in the game. I know there's at least 10. At least I'm pretty sure there's at least 10. I think it's quite a bit longer than that. It's probably about the same as it is in Remake, where it's around 20 chapters. Because I know that this one goes, I mean, you know, Remake only goes to basically when you leave Midgar. This one goes all the way to the Forgotten Capital and what was the original end of Disc 1. So, yeah, so I still have quite a ways to go, but I'm, you know, thoroughly enjoying myself. Starting to get the hang more of the card game Queen's Blood. I won't spoil anything specific, but there is a sequence related to one of the games of Queen's Blood that's scripted. And oh my goodness, it is amazing and hilarious, and I love it so much. And that's the extent of what I'm going to say about it. But, yeah, it was truly fantastic. And I will say I'm starting to understand Queen's Blood better. And I definitely, while I don't think for me, it's definitely not on the same level as Triple Triad, it's still very good, and I like it. So, what I didn't like so much, and I don't have the footage, I'm not going to play the footage right now. I'll probably end up including it in the final version, but there's this frog mini game where you are on this platform, like this pillar out in the middle of the ocean, and you have these spinning turbines that are going two opposite directions. The top one's going slower, and the bottom one is going faster, and you have to jump over it. And because they're going in opposite directions, you know, occasionally they interact and stuff, but because you are a frog, if you get hit by either one of those, it knocks you off the platform. As you go through the thing, segments of the platform will collapse, and so then you have less room for jumping and avoiding the things. And eventually you get down to having very small portions of the platform left, and you still have to avoid these. There's like 3 different tiers to how long you're supposed to last on this, with the longest one being 1 minute and 20 seconds. With all the times that I did it, the very first time I did it, I made it something over 1 minute without too much difficulty. And after that, I just was not having luck. I was having a terrible time. There was one time I got to 1 minute and 18.73 seconds and then got knocked off. I think that it may have been one of the platform plates underneath me collapsed, and I was in a spot where I couldn't get to the next one over quickly enough, and so it just ended up I failed on that. But after several more attempts, I mean, like, I couldn't tell you how many times it took me to actually get through this, but I did eventually get all the way to that 1 minute and 20 seconds. I don't have it recorded, but I did manage to do it. So there's like a piano mini game, which is cool, except that I'm not any good at it, because it's basically you're moving the joysticks in different directions to play different notes, and you have to hit the joystick in that specific direction to play that note, like the number of times, because you're playing like actual songs from the game. And there are some times where you're having to do both sticks at the same time. And I'm just not very good at it. Like, it's completely different than playing an actual musical instrument, and even though, of course, my only like musical instrument experiences with the guitar, bass guitar, it's still just very different. So yeah, I will say I'm probably not going to go for all achievements in this game, mostly because I'm pretty sure that I have to do the piano stuff in order to get it, and I think there's also just a lot of grinding in other areas. Like, one of the guys in the Married to the Games Discord, who's really big on PlayStation and goes for platinums all the time because he's a single guy, and that's just something he enjoys doing, and he gets platinums in basically every game he plays. He said that the platinum is not worth it, and I mean, that's saying something, because I think he's gotten the platinum just about every other game that he plays, and I mean, I'm pretty sure he did get it on this one, but he said it's just not worth it. Not worth the effort. So it's probably one where I'm not going to aim to do it initially. If I decide to do it, it's going to be more like, okay, as I have time, I might, like, go back to it occasionally and just work on other parts of getting the platinum, but I'm not going to, like, worry about trying to do it necessarily. So but yeah, I'm still enjoying the game. It's still really good and plays really well on PC, and yeah, I'm having a good time with it. But as I had talked about last week, I did go back and play some more Doom 2016, and I finished it. I got all of the stuff done that I wanted to do. I was looking at the idea of potentially going for all achievements, but and I think, like, most of them are not that unreasonable to do, but there's a bunch of achievements that are related to doing multiplayer stuff, and unless it's stuff that I could cheese, like just playing with a single friend on a multiplayer match and get all the achievements that way, I probably won't even bother. So but I got all the upgrades and all the various things that I wanted to do essentially in the game to satisfy it or to complete it to my satisfaction. I mean, there's a couple things I wouldn't mind doing, but I wasn't like, I figured since none of them really benefited me in any way, shape, or form, I just didn't bother with it. So, and that's mostly just like the various weapon mods that you get if trying to complete all the objectives connected to those in order to get them fully upgraded, and then also doing the objectives for all the different like armor mods or whatever they are. I can't remember what they're actually called, they give you different abilities, ranging from things like giving you, making you able to do glory kills from further away, and so on and so forth. So yeah. But, of course, having finished that, I went ahead and installed Doom Eternal, both on the deck and my PC. And I've only played on the deck so far, but I'm definitely having a great time with it. As with Doom 2016, it can easily run at a locked or very close to locked 60 frames per second with high settings. I'm having a blast with it, although it controls very differently. I mean, I should say a lot of the mechanics are very different from what they were in 2016, particularly because Eternal, like grenades are done a bit differently. You have some different types of grenades with that. How you replenish ammo is largely based on using your chainsaw, because basically I mean, there is some ammo in the environments, but most of the ammo is obtained by using your chainsaw and cutting enemies. Granted, you get I would like the ammo for that, at least like one of them will recharge by default, and then the others, you can find the ammo enough in the environments. And then you also have this thing called a flame belt, which is basically just like a flamethrower on your arm. And when you use it on enemies and do damage to them, then they drop like armor regeneration stuff and various other things like that. Really, it's just the mechanics are different enough to where it's I'm still working on getting used to it again, because it's been like 3-4 years since I played through it. But excuse me. But yeah, it's good stuff. So I think that's everything.
Okay, so on the topic of Doom, and this is something that I don't think we covered last week, and something that I wanted to bring up, which I'm glad you mentioned because I completely forgot about it, is that Doom Dark Ages is not going to have multiplayer, and they're focusing only on single player, which I think, speaking to what you said, it would be definitely easier then to get all the achievements in the game. And I mean, also, I haven't touched it at all. I don't know if you've touched it before. If you have, what are your opinions on the multiplayer in Doom and or Eternal?
I have not played the multiplayer at all. And I don't know if Eternal has multiplayer. I don't... Actually, yeah, it probably does. But no, I haven't done anything with the multiplayer. I've just never really been interested in that. I mean, yeah, like, I'm sure it's fun, but I just don't really like doing the multiplayer. Plus, I know that I would just get completely slaughtered.
Yeah. I don't know if, like, people... I mean, I guess I don't know if they were trying to just, I guess at this point, focus solely on making the single-player game as best as it could be, or I don't know if, if people played enough of the multiplayer to the point where they thought it was worth bringing back or not. But I at least thought it was interesting that they weren't going to be bringing it back for Dark Ages. Yeah. And I wish I brought it up last week, but you mentioning it now made me remember that. But excuse me. But yeah. So with, I guess, still on the aspect of Doom. So with Eternal, so I've heard this one focuses a whole lot more with platforming, or at least also with I think because you have like a grappling hook with in Eternal.
Yeah. Well, you get a grappling thing. I mean, like, initially you just have basically like you're able to grab onto certain walls. There are certain walls that you can grab onto and climb, and you initially just get like a jump boost thing that lets you boost forward, and then later on you get like a hook shot thing for your double shotgun or your super shotgun, which you can use for that purpose as well.
Okay. So yeah, I guess as a whole then, excuse me, I guess then as a whole, since you said like some of the mechanics were different from the first one, then this it definitely seems like Eternal then it would be a huge, I guess, step up from 2016 then, based on what you're saying, because I mean I'll probably, if assuming I finish up 2016, I'll probably jump into 20 I'll not 20 probably jump into Eternal, but knowing that's gonna be different is going to be, or at least drastically enough different, is going to be interesting to adjust to that.
Yeah,
But
I mean the good
yes.
thing is that they do kind of ease you into it. For me, the hardest thing initially was just more the fact that since I was going back into a game I had already started from when I recorded the comparison last year, um, it took I was just far enough in the game to where it's like, okay, they weren't reintroducing me to some of the new mechanics, and so I was having to remind myself mentally of what the differences were, and I still have to keep reminding myself, oh yeah, I need to use the chainsaw to get some more ammo. But yeah.
Mm, yeah. And going back to Final Fantasy Rebirth. So I guess based on what you've been saying so far, would you say there are more, I guess, uh mini games in this one compared with
Oh yeah,
Remake?
lots more.
Because I don't think I've really seen too many so far in
No.
Remake. I mean, I think the only one I've come across would be the darts game, and
Yeah, Remake has
that's
darts
it.
game. It has oh, let's see here. There's a pull-ups thing. There's box breaking. I think that might be it for mini games. I can't remember if it was just those three. There might be another one besides that, but I think those are the three big ones. Is those types of mini games. Of course, the box breaking one with Yuffie is crazy, and honestly, like it to get the most difficult challenge in that, I think that is harder than the hardest boss in the games. It took a lot of work to actually get that one. I mean, I did get it. I even had it recorded. I streamed it, but um, yeah, that one was a big pain. But yeah, this one already has more mini games, and I haven't even got to the gold saucer yet, and that's where most of the mini games are. So, oh, one thing I will note though that I forgot about, I assumed because of the fact that there's chocobos and chocobo racing in this one that there would be breeding chocobos like there was in the original, and there's not. So there's no having to breed chocobos. You get to, I mean, there's still chocobo racing, and I don't really know exactly how it compares, because like I remember chocobo racing in the original Final Fantasy VII. If you knew how to game the system properly, it was pretty easy to win every race. And really, the hardest thing was just breeding the right kind of chocobo, and that usually you could save your game, and if you didn't successfully breed the right chocobo, you just reset and then try again. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because when you were listing the different mini games, I thought there seemed to be quite a lot of mini games this time around, but that definitely makes sense as to why then, because there are just more. And I mean, we're, I mean, I didn't make it that far in the original game. Were there? I mean, are a lot of these mini games new, or were some of these from the original one?
The ones I've done so far have been new. But I know that there are at least some of them are definitely repeats from the original.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Gold Saucer, a lot of them are repeats from the original.
Hmm. Okay. So I guess one last question I sort of have is so you said that believe last time was you were still trying to get accustomed to the new mechanics in the new combat mechanics.
Mhm.
Would you say that you've pretty much got a good grasp on the new changes?
I would
You said
say
it's
I have a better grasp. There are some things I'm still not quite used to. One of the things that's new that I like, I just haven't quite fully gotten used to it, is that there is a default, there is an actual parry mechanic that doesn't require having a materia. Um, and like I haven't messed with it enough to get like really used to using it, but it the nice thing about it is that if you successfully do it, you can prevent any damage from attacks, including projectiles, which is pretty nifty. Basically, the only thing that you can't parry are the exclamation mark, red attacks. Everything else you can parry.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And I would say the parrying is easier than it is in like Ghost of Tsushima, for example. But you also get hit a lot more often by a lot more attacks, including especially projectiles. So
Sounds good.
all right. Anything else before we get into the news?
No, sir.
All right, so we got some good news for PlayStation fans and just for people who want more people to play great games. And that is that the PlayStation 5 has officially gotten an announcement that Forza Horizon 5, among other games, which we'll also mention here, is coming to the PlayStation 5. Now, the other games that so far have been confirmed are Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, Age of Mythology Retold, which is the most recent game that came out. Actually, those and Forza Horizon 5 have been confirmed for PS5. And there's a rumor right now that there's a Gears of War remastered trilogy coming that will be released on all platforms. Because currently there is no remastered trilogy, it's just backwards compatibility with all of the previous games. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's interesting seeing more games, I mean, Microsoft has already said that they want to get more games on other platforms, but the rate of games being ported over to the PlayStation is definitely much quicker than I think many people have been expecting. The fact that we've got 3 confirmed games right now coming over in such a short amount of time is pretty impressive. And I mean, maybe PlayStation fans will really enjoy Forza. I mean, I think if someone who's a Gran Turismo fan, they might really enjoy Forza. That might be up their alley. And I mean, as far as with Age of Empires, Age of Mythology, I mean, I think that because those games, even before coming to Xbox, I think those were more so, I guess, PC type of titles, just because those are strategy types of games, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is probably a good chance to expand upon the type of strategy games being brought over to console, since while there are strategy games on console, it's more so, I guess you could say, a PC type of genre. So I mean, like, having that expansion, definitely nice. Having more people be able to play these games is definitely nice. As far as the Gears trilogy goes, I mean, it's a rumor, but I think it's definitely feasible. I mean, at the very least, it makes sense. I mean, on one hand, like, as you said, the game has only been available through backwards compatibility on Xbox. I mean, there was no port at all for the trilogy on PC. The only Gears game we have on there is 4, and I think like the Gears Tactics.
5 is on
But
there too.
oh, 5. Okay, it's 5. Not 4. But yeah, and I mean, I would have liked to have tried the original trilogy. I mean, I think I played a little bit of it on the Xbox One. I can't remember which one it was, but I played a little bit on there um, with my friend one time. It seemed interesting enough at the time, but I didn't really play too much to really have a full opinion on it. But you know, I would like to give it another shot if it was ported over, and I do believe it is definitely possible. I mean, Microsoft, for one hand, you know, they want to put games on other platforms, and while you know Phil Spencer said that the games that come over would be under discussion, nothing was necessarily off the table, but I don't think he would necessarily. I mean, granted, Indiana Jones and I can't remember what the other game is, but those are coming pretty much
Hmm.
shortly after to PlayStation as well. But I think that to sort of to keep a flow of games coming, porting over some other games would definitely be a strategy, sort of similar to how Sony has been porting over some older games to PC, and you know possibly down the pipeline, then they start bringing over newer and newer titles closer from the original PlayStation launch date. So I could definitely see this happening, and I don't think I think it's definitely a possibility. As far as when we'll hear it, as far as any sort type of announcement, I don't know, but I think it's likely. Um, I mean, I would be down for it. You know, more people get to play the game. Uh, Also getting new updates for the game. You know, having it remastered for modern uh, styles and modern graphics would also be nice as well. But yeah, that's my thoughts on everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I have no reason to doubt that the Gears of War trilogy is coming. I mean, they already remastered the first game, but they never remastered 2 and 3. And 4 and 5 are more recent games anyway, that were both Xbox One titles, I believe. Um, so there's not really any reason why that wouldn't happen. Actually, now that I think about it, Gears of War 5 is um, series title, I'm pretty sure. And that it's just 1 through 3 were on the 360, or I can't remember. I know the first 2 for sure were on 360. I believe 3 was also on 360, and then there's like the Gears of War Judgment is the other game. That was like an in-between one that I've heard is actually not any good, but anyway, regardless, I believe this is definitely happening. With regards to the ones that are already confirmed, so Forza Horizon 5, first of all, I do want to note for anybody who's watching the video version of this, the stutters in the trailer are not the trailer themselves having stutters, and it's not the gameplay that from the original reveal trailer that has the stutters. It's just for some reason the downloaded version of the trailer that I have that has some weird stutters in it. It might even actually, in reality, it's probably more likely than not something to do with OBS causing the stutters, but I don't know. Anyway, just noting that. I briefly tried, I believe it was Forza Horizon 4. I tried a demo of it at one point because I was thinking, okay, this looks like the kind of game I might enjoy. But the problem was that I was expecting the cars to handle like the Batmobile in Arkham Knight in terms of just the acceleration and everything, and they don't handle anything like that. I mean, obviously I wasn't expecting to be able to, you know, like crash into environments or be able to move as fast, but just having kind of a similar feel, and it felt nothing like that. And so I very quickly just abandoned it. But I've always liked the idea of these games. It just hasn't been anything that I've been super interested in. But maybe at some point when it's like on deep discount, like under $10, I might consider grabbing it. Because as far as I know, it does run on the Steam Deck. So there's that too. And then like the both Age of Mythology and Age of Empires, I don't have any interest in those whatsoever. But really just of these things, The Gears trilogy does interest me. I've been interested in Gears of War for a long time. There was a time in which I had considered grabbing the Games for Windows Live version of Gears of War, but I never did, and now I'm even more glad I didn't. So, but yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts on that. These games are all coming over. They're going to be multi-platform. Xbox is doing a completely new, or just a completely different strategy with how they're doing things. They're going to keep releasing hardware, but they're also going to be releasing their games multi-platform, and I think that these games are going to sell really well. I think they're probably going to sell better on PlayStation than they have on Xbox in many cases. And especially because that there's going to be PlayStation fanboys who will hate buy these games, these Xbox games, just because of console wars and because they want to brag about the fact that they can play these games on their PlayStation, while not realizing that by doing that they're giving Microsoft money, and they're just basically demonstrating that Microsoft has the right idea by doing that. So, but yeah, I mean, everything I've always heard about Forza Horizon is that it's great, especially Forza Horizon 5, and of course it is very different from Gran Turismo, because Gran Turismo is a sim racer, and Forza Motorsport is also a sim racer, but Forza Horizon is more arcadey and cross-country racing and all that kind of stuff. So it's very different from that standpoint, but I don't think PlayStation really has any games like that. Like, I know Ubisoft has released one or two games that are similar-ish, but some of those at least have been delisted on PC, if not also delisted elsewhere. So, and not just delisted, like completely taken offline and you can't play them anymore. That might just be The Crew. I can't remember if it was The Crew or both Crew games, but yeah, so PlayStation will get a there's a really funny tweet that I saw in a couple of videos. PlayStation's finally getting a good Horizon game. And I mean, like, I thought it was very funny, even though I like the game. I like the Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West in terms of gameplay. But I did think that was very funny. So yeah. That is all I have to say, I think.
Same here.
All right, you want to talk about the Bloodborne hopium that we have coming about here?
Oh boy. All right. So, well, there were two things that happened last week. So, first off, so there's a guy named Lance McDonald, and he made a patch for Bloodborne to have a 60 FPS patch, and it's something he had been working on. In fact, it was released in 2021, and I believe it's like I can't remember when it was, but he met with Shuhei Yoshida, and he actually met with him, and he mentioned that he made the mod for Bloodborne as well, and Yoshida said, "Oh," and it seems like he wasn't taken aback by it, and he seemed pretty positive. He reacted positively. Well, however, recently he received a DMC takedown notification on behalf of Sony Interactive Entertainment, asking that he remove the links to the patch that he posted on the internet, and he's done so since then. And that caused people to wonder, well, why is this happening now? Why haven't they done anything at this point? And here's the thing, not long after, there was another takedown. So Bloodborne PSX demake, and this is something that we've talked about before, I think partially because of the Bloodborne cart that was made and also had received DMC takedown. this has also been DMC claimed as well. And it's been taken down. I can't remember when exactly the date was hit. Actually, yesterday, as per this article by PSU. But the developer for the Bloodborne demake, I can't remember the name of the dev who made the demake, but they received DMC claim as well, which is, shortly after the original or after the 60 FPS patch takedown. And Lance McDonald came back and he said his theory is that the reason why this is happening is because of the fact that, or his copium theory as he calls it, is because of the fact that, maybe Sony could be making a remaster or remake of Bloodborne. So what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, what I can say that I think lends credence to this idea is what I remember happened with another Metroid 2 remake. It got taken down after being put up, and it was shortly after that they announced the Metroid 2 remake for the 3DS. There was that. I mean, because I don't think it was up super long before they did the takedown on it. I could be remembering wrong on that, but either way, it was like the timing was such to where it definitely seemed like, okay, it's pretty obvious that this is a big reason why they took it down, because this person had, done all this work to make the remake of Metroid 2, but Nintendo already had their own coming out. I still haven't played that remake. I mean, I played the Nintendo one, the one on 3DS, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I do have the other Metroid 2 remake. In fact, I have it both on my PC and my Vita, of all places. So, but yeah, it's it is a hopium / copium kind of thing to think that this is actually happening. I want it to happen. Because while I probably could emulate the game just fine, and theoretically should be able to get above 60 FPS, it is very much a CPU intensive thing to emulate PS4 games. And I'm not positive whether or not my CPU is enough to handle it. I mean, like, theoretically it should be, but I mean, you need a much stronger CPU than what you have in the original console in order to properly emulate something like that. So I'm not really certain about how well I would be able to do it. And either way, I'd rather just have an official version because it's simpler that way. And I imagine more likely than not that even if they capped it at 60, there would be an easy way to mod it to be able to go above 60. So, but I mean, I guess the way I'm looking at it right now is I'm thinking if PlayStation doesn't reveal it within the next 6 months, I'll probably just buy the PS4 version and then emulate it, or at least try to emulate it. Because it's like, I know that the Steam Deck can emulate Bloodborne. It's only like 25 to 30 frames per second, which is basically about as well as it runs on the PS4. But so, considering that, there doesn't seem to be any good reason why it shouldn't be able to run at 60 or above on my PC. Because obviously my PC is a lot stronger than the the Steam Deck. So, I don't know. But either way, it's just kind of like, from what I understand, it's actually very simple to do. Because I checked with a friend of mine, and he said, I mean, he originally bought a PS4 specifically for Bloodborne, just because he wanted to play that. And he played it and loved it. And he said that he has, since he started emulating it, he can never go back to the PS4 version because it's just so much better emulating it with the high frame rates and everything. And I mean, his rig is definitely stronger than mine. But yeah. I'm not in any rush to play Bloodborne, but I do want to play it. I'm definitely way more interested in it than I was before I had actually started beating Souls games. And now I'm just like, yeah, I'll definitely play it at some point. Well, assuming that I live long enough to play it, then I will play it. Because obviously only God knows how long I'll be on this earth. But I would like to play it. And I think that there is a real possibility that it's coming and coming soon, and that's the reason why they took it down. Especially when you consider the fact that this year's the 10th anniversary of Bloodborne. It would be a great time to announce it and reveal it. And we'll be talking a bit later about this rumored state of play, but that could be a great place to reveal it. So, but yeah, that is my thoughts on it. Actually, real quick, I do have a question. Do you have the Bloodborne demake at all?
Yes. I have.
Because I don't think I ever took the time to grab it.
I can't remember. I think I have, or at least from the last time I remember, I think I might have the latest version of the demake, if not one of the latest versions. But yeah, I can definitely pass that your way.
I think that would be fun to play on the Steam Deck too. But obviously, I want to play the real game, but I'm super fascinated by demakes. Like, if you can have the right mechanics with those PS1 graphics, that's just, to me, that is so cool. I love that. I absolutely love when you take the aesthetic of old games and have modern controls and mechanics. That's just, it's peak. It's great. Because then it's basically like you're playing it. You're playing these games how you remember them being versus how they actually controlled back in the day. But anyway,
yeah. And also, as I guess, sort of a side note on that, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but have you ever heard of the Final Fantasy VII demake?
Are you talking about the one for NES?
Yes, I think that's the one.
Yeah. I've heard of it. I've never played it. I don't even think I've ever looked at footage, but I've seen the cartridge of it, and Gabe Patillo, who I've talked about a bunch, I'm pretty sure he had a copy of that. Because Final Fantasy VII was his favorite game of all time. So.
Okay. But yeah, so I think that as far as this rumor goes, I'm torn. I'm torn because on one hand, we've been going for a long time on hopium.
Yep.
And a lot of copium as well.
Yep.
So to think Bloodborne could be coming feels like it could be just another chance to set ourselves up for disappointment.
Yep.
Especially since the Nvidia leak did not have Bloodborne listed. It had Demon Souls, but it didn't have Bloodborne listed at all.
Yeah.
Which, granted, we haven't gotten Demon Souls yet, and we're still waiting on that.
Yeah. Well, hey, they could announce the Bloodborne remaster coming to PS5 and PC, and at the same time also announce Demon Souls is coming to PC. They absolutely could.
And I do feel like, to a degree, there is a bit of hope in the fact that the patch and the demake were taken down, because as you said, that something similar like that happened with AM2R and Metroid 2 Samus Returns was announced shortly after.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and also consider the fact that Sony doesn't typically do takedowns for fan stuff like this. Like, this is that's not really their type of playbook. Now, granted, one thing could be considered is the fact that with the new change in leadership, maybe that could be a reason why. But at the same time, I doubt it. I doubt that would be a reason why. But so I think maybe we could be getting something. And as you said, it's the 10-year anniversary. It would make sense. The time is right. Give the fans what they've been asking years for. And the fact that they haven't even given a 60 FPS patch for the PS5, you know, now's the time. And and Sony really wants to also get that PC revenue. If they release this, that would sell like hotcakes. I mean, seriously, I would pre-order that thing right then and there.
Absolutely. 100%.
So it probably won't happen. But at the same time, I'm gonna have that childlike hope, that maybe on Christmas morning I open up my gifts and there is Bloodborne right there for me. But we'll see. And as you said, in one of the later topics we'll discuss, that could be happening. That could be revealed, but we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, hopefully, if Sony does in fact bring it to PC, they will, from day one, not have any region locks on it, and it will just be sold everywhere. Since they have pulled back from doing the PSN requirement. Hopefully. Because otherwise it would just be dumb. I mean, it's like, it's going to sell well on PC without question. Oh, yeah. The funny thing, though, is that, I guess maybe not so much funny, but depending on what they do with the remaster, this could end up being something that's like a little more scummy on the PlayStation side of things. If all they do is give it 60 FPS and make PlayStation fans pay $70 for it. And it's like, 60 FPS is great. Yes, we absolutely want 60 FPS for Bloodborne. But if all they do is give it 60 FPS after taking down the free mod, that's scummy. Now, I do think that more likely than not, if they're doing a remaster, they're going to do more with it than just boost the frame rate. They will probably add ray tracing. Forced ray tracing. Not necessarily that they have to do it on PC, because, even Spider-Man 2, which was forced ray tracing on PlayStation, does not force it on PC. Granted, the PC port, from what everybody's been saying, is in really bad shape, and it's definitely not where it should be, which is embarrassing for Nixxes, because they've had such a great track record, and now they didn't finish getting it all completely optimized. I'm sure they'll fix it. Like, Nixxes is really good at what they do, and they will fix it, but it shouldn't have released broken. It should have just been working very well from day one. Having a couple bugs here and there, okay, but of course at the same time the game was also full of bugs on day one for PlayStation, for PS5, so I don't know. It's just, there's not really a good excuse for it. There isn't, and hopefully this won't be a recurring thing. I still think Bloodborne will be worth doing day one, even if there's a chance that it won't be functioning exactly as it should be. But I think that there's a better chance that one's going to do well, because of the fact that FromSoft is behind it, would be probably very heavily involved in it, and FromSoft is good at optimizing their games. So, not perfectly, because obviously, Elden Ring had some issues at launch, and still in some ways has issues, but in general, they do pretty well, and Bloodborne's, not like a big open world thing like Elden Ring, so it's more corridor-like, as with Dark Souls. I would love, though, if Bloodborne was 60 FPS on the Steam Deck. That would be amazing. I'm not getting my hopes up, even whenever it theoretically comes to PC, but if it was, it would be glorious. I just figure it's probably not going to be. Though I would take 40 on the Steam Deck if I could get locked or close to a locked 40. But even without that, I'll take whatever they'll give me, as long as it's able to get to and maintain above 60 frames per second. I'll be a happy guy. And obviously, eventually, I'll upgrade PC parts and then be able to do more. But yeah, anyway, that's all I got for that.
Same here.
Well, as we mentioned before, there is a rumor currently going around, and this may be hopium from PlayStation fans because this comes up all the time, but the rumor is that there's going to be a state of play this coming week, the week of Valentine's Day. It's according to Nate the Hate, so yeah, I'd say it's happening. Yeah, if he says it's supposed to be coming next week, then I believe him. He has such a great track record. I mean, he was spot on with the Switch 2 Direct, even when it didn't look like it was going to happen. We were just completely unsure, and then sure enough, it happened exactly when he said it was going to. Just a shadow drop. So I don't think Sony's is going to be a shadow drop, but I'd say yeah, we'll be getting a PlayStation state of play next week. I don't know if he says anything about what is expected to be shown. Doesn't say anything about that. So all we know is that, at least according to Nate the Hate, there's going to be a state of play next week. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that it's coming from Nate's is implies that's very likely to happen. And as you said, he nailed the Nintendo Switch reveal and on the day, and even when people were about to bring out their pitchforks because the fact that Nintendo didn't even tease or announce that was going to happen, it still happened.
Yeah.
So I think this is very likely. And I mean, as far as what we'll see, I think it could be something that we haven't necessarily, or something that Sony hasn't necessarily talked about much in a while. Like, they could be discussing the Wolverine game, because I mean, I don't even remember when the last time they actually said something about the game was.
That was the initial teaser.
Yeah, that's been pretty much it. And I mean, of course, we had like the leaks and stuff, but nothing official has come up about it since then. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling we might hear something about it. And I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that they could probably even give the release date for the game. And I'll go out on a limb and say that maybe mid to late 2025. I mean, assuming nothing has happened with development, I feel like it's safe enough to bet that enough has happened where they can actually start showing more stuff. But at the very least, I think this game will definitely show up. I mean, what other has there been anything else that they've been I mean, maybe we could get some Death Stranding 2. I mean, they've shown us that before, but I think those are probably the two games that I think will likely appear, as we've mentioned before, as part of our hopium. Maybe getting some Bloodborne revealed, but who knows? I'm not entirely certain what else would be appear. I mean, maybe on one hand also, I think some small PC port, probably something of like an older game that released before. They'll say, hey, and also coming to PC sometime later this year is whatever PC title is. I don't know what still hasn't been ported over yet so far, but something that would be relatively medium size. I mean, not something that is completely new, but something that probably released within about, I don't know, the past few years. So that's pretty much all that I have, but I don't know, maybe there's something I've forgotten.
Yeah, I think that I think there's definitely a good chance that Wolverine could show up there. I do think that even if it does show up, though, it probably will not be a 2025 release, in my opinion. Mostly because of the fact that because they wouldn't want it to get in the way of Ghost of Yotei. I mean, obviously they could, separate them far enough apart to where it wouldn't be an issue. But I do think, I think that one's going to be a 2026 game. And I mean, because Ghost of Yotei, I'm pretty sure they said is coming out this year. At least that was what they said when they revealed it. So I'd say that there's a chance we could see something from that game. Potentially a release date for it. I do think seeing Wolverine, some sort of actual preview beyond just that teaser trailer, is likely. Hopefully in a much more finished state than the leaks we saw. I mean, I would imagine by now it would have to be, because it's been probably at least a year since those leaks happened. I don't remember. Time flies, but I'd say I think there's a good chance we'll see at least one PC port. Whether it would be something that is just ported entirely separate because like it's already exists on PS5, or like the PS4 version or whatever already exists and this is just something else. Whether it would be something like that, or it would just be a like a new remaster. It's hard to say. I think that probably if I was going to put money on it, which I wouldn't because I don't put money on stuff, but if I was going to, I would say probably, barring the reveal of Demon Souls, of Bloodborne, Demon Souls would be my best bet, because we know that's coming. It's just a question of when. And it was on the Nvidia leak, and I believe it's the only like PlayStation specific first party game from the Nvidia leak that hasn't come yet. I may be remembering wrong on that, but I mean, of course, there's also Gran Turismo 7 that could be one of the things that could come over. Now, my extreme hopium / copium, I guess more just like, I know it's happening, I just don't know when, and because, it's hard to say exactly how their release schedule is going to be. I would love it if they just announced like several games that are going to be on both PS5 and PC, like remasters of PS4 games, the God of War trilogy, or the collection, the remake collection or whatever. Bringing the remasters of the Uncharted trilogy. I mean, honestly, I don't think most of these things are going to show up. I think it's going to be probably more third-party focused than anything else. Now, this is my extreme hopium kind of thing. That even if it was revealed, it probably would only be announced for PS5, even though it'll be day one everywhere. And that would be Persona 6. But not that I'm necessarily in a rush to play Persona 6, because I still have... I have at least two Atlas RPGs that I'm still working on. Plus Metaphor that I don't own yet. And that I'm just waiting to grab until it's on sale enough to make it worthwhile. But I'd say that is about all of my thoughts on the state of play.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, now this next story is a smaller one, but it's just something that I wanted to talk about because it's closer to my heart in terms of games I enjoyed. As I mentioned earlier, I was playing Snake Pass, but the reason for that was because Sumo Digital, who's the developer behind Snake Pass, as well as what else was it that they did? Sackboy Big Adventure and Team Sonic Racing. They okay, never mind. I'm sorry. Those are the partner IP games. But basically the TLDR, whatever, of this is that Sumo Digital's not going to be developing any more original IPs, and they're going to focus entirely on working as a studio for hire for different development partners. So things like Sackboy: The Big Adventure and Team Sonic Racing and various other licensed things they will be working on, but they are not going to be doing anything unique like Snake Pass, which to me is disappointing. I'll get more into that though. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this definitely is a bit, I guess, disappointing. I guess to see a team not able to pursue the types of projects they would want to pursue. I mean, I believe the article you sent said that there were some layoffs within the company, which, last year they laid off 50% of employees, which, I mean, in the midst of the layoffs that have been going on. So it's not something that is sadly too out of the ordinary on that end. But, they also said that they made, it was a hard decision to also, change their focus. And they said, for the sake of the long-term health of the company, they wanted to shift away from making those more creative titles and focus more so on the partner games. So it is kind of sad on that end because, you won't get games that are unique because, as you said earlier we're talking about it, Snake Pass isn't, your typical run-of-the-mill game. It's something that is unique and different from what you would normally see. So, the fact that we won't get that type of experience is definitely it's definitely a shame. Not saying that the other games they've made aren't good or anything, but as far as something that is unique, that's probably up to debate, I would say. I have Snake Pass. I haven't played it yet. I had it originally on the Switch, but I never touched that because that was before I actually had a Switch, and I do have it on Steam, but I haven't touched that yet as well. But as you said, from what I've heard, the game is pretty good. Eventually, at some point, I'll definitely, give that a shot. But it is sad that they won't be able to make the types of games that they would necessarily want to make in light of everything that's happened. But hopefully, eventually down the road, they can get back and make something unique and different again, rather than, make a partner game because they have to just to keep the lights on.
Right. Yeah, I'm disappointed about this. Obviously it's been, almost 8 years since Snake Pass came out, and honestly, I hadn't really necessarily expected there would ever be a sequel because I don't think it sold great. But it was a game I really enjoyed. The fact that I 100%ed it twice and that I'm back to working on the rest of the achievements and trying to get 100% on the achievements, says a lot about the game. It's very unique. It's like platformer-esque, but it's so different because of the fact that you're using a snake and you're dealing with basically snake physics, and so it's really interesting. And the music's great in it and everything, and it's got the collectathon stuff that you get with a typical 3D platformer, but it was just really special to me in terms of like the type of game. It's a very special game. So yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is, and I could see myself definitely going back and replaying the game again in the future. Right now, because of the fact that one of the achievements I need is to get through every level without dying. And it's not like you have to do them all back to back without dying. It's just more like you do the whole level, you get through each level independently without dying. So if I die, I have to start the level over again, which is a little bit, which is challenging. But at least I don't have to get through the entire level without dying and also get all the collectibles, because I already got all the collectibles, and so they're no longer in the levels. I don't have to redo that part. It's just, getting what I need in order to finish the level. So,
About how many levels are there?
I want to say 15. I'm pretty sure that's right. But, yeah. Good stuff. All right. Any other thoughts on that topic?
No, sir.
All right. So we got confirmation from Nintendo on a few various things here. Some of them I'll just mention more briefly because I didn't specifically write them down, but they are things to note. One of those is that the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct has been confirmed to be, we already knew it was going to be on April 2nd. The time has been confirmed. It's going to be 6 a.m. Pacific time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So I'm totally cool with that. I like that. But apart from that, they've also confirmed that there will still be games developed for the Switch, the original Switch. There will be lots of games that are cross-gen. And that Metroid Prime 4, as well as Pokemon LegenZ-A, will still be on the original Switch and not just on the Switch 2, despite speculation. So what are your thoughts?
All right. So, I mean, I'm not too surprised by this on one hand, but it's definitely great that it's available for people who, might not be able to get a Switch because of the fact that despite Nintendo's best efforts, it's still most likely going to sell out at launch and to be a bit hard to buy one. So, that people still be able to play the games even if they can't get a Switch 2 to play them. But I think that's also good because of the fact that, maybe people who don't want to get a Switch right away, they'll still be able to play those games. Even if they won't necessarily be able to get the higher quality. Because, maybe the game's similar to Breath of the Wild, it'll run better on the Switch 2 than it will on the original Switch. It also makes me wonder, with the games being cross-gen, is there going to be an official Switch 2 cartridge? Or is it just going to be a Switch cartridge you pop into a Switch 2 and whatever benefits come with the Switch 2 version are just something that you download or whatever? Because, it could go either way. Because, essentially then you would have two, I guess, two technically boxes. On one hand, though, it's kind of different, but at the same time, it's kind of the same. With Zelda Twilight Princess, because you did have it on the GameCube and Wii, and technically the Wii was, GameCube was backwards compatible, but if you bought the Wii version, you were using the motion controls, whereas if you're using the GameCube version, you're using a controller. So if the games are going to still be playing essentially the same, I don't know if there's going to be two physical versions, like one that's specifically designed for the Switch and Switch 2, and one that's specifically designed for the Switch 2, which also is another thing. With the Switch 2, being backwards compatible, are the cartridges going to be similar to the 3DS, where there's like a special tab or something that keeps the games from being inserted to original Switch? I'm curious to seeing what happens on that end. But definitely think it's great. Now, that being said, it prevents me from having to buy a Switch 2 to buy a Metroid Prime 4, which, I definitely love on that end. Uh, but I mean, if they happen to release a physical version for the Switch 2 that is the Switch 2 version, I'll be double dipping. I might not double dip. Well, who knows with me, but
you will.
I will be double.
You will.
Yeah. We already know. Oh, I am so weak. But yeah, I'll definitely be doing that. But I think one reason why is because, unlike with the Wii U, the Switch is a technically still popular device, so like there's no need to rush, getting people into the new console because the Switch will technically still sell. And I think that because of the fact that, from what I saw last time, they reached 150 million units sold. Maybe they're still trying to reach or surpass the PS2. So I don't know if that's another reason as to why they, still want to try to push the original Switch and see, hey, maybe we can still sell some Switch units. I doubt they're going to do it, considering the fact they haven't done it so far. But, maybe they might even cut the price of the original Switches and try to, push some more units to see if they can beat the record of the PS2. I don't know. But, I don't think there's really too much of a rush for Nintendo to get people into the Switch 2. Because, like I said, it's not like the Switch bombs like the Wii U did. And there was like, all right, we need to get people into the next console now because no one's playing the Wii U. People still like their Switches. So, I think there's a good reason. I think there's a good cause to have a transitionary period where they can say, all right, we'll slowly phase things out, sort of like how they did in previous gens with, the Wii, the GameCube into the Wii, and the Wii into the Wii U. I mean, I still think maybe they'll sell games for the original Switch at least for another year, maybe two. I think that's still likely because I mean, yeah, I think that's definitely good. But I mean, I am glad though that people won't have to necessarily rush out to buy a new console to play these games. But I do think though that there should, if we are having cross gen, I think there should be something that would help incentivize people to buy the newer versions. Like say, hey, I think, considering the fact that the Metroid Prime Remastered was 60 FPS, I think Prime 4 should definitely be 60 FPS, but say you can get better textures or graphics or better like shadows or
they'll
lighting
probably
or
have
something
ray
like
tracing.
that. Yeah,
I mean,
in the,
and 4K, of course, because they'll have DLSS most likely.
Right. But I definitely think there should be something in these versions, and I mean, maybe if there's something in the, because I mean, judging by from what I've heard judging by I don't know how the other Pokemon's games did, but maybe there'll be some better improvements in ZA as opposed to
running at a stable 30 frames per second.
Yeah, maybe we might actually get like 60 FPS in this one.
No, not a chance.
I'm trying to be optimistic here.
I mean, this is Game Freak and the Pokemon Company we're talking about. They do not know how to optimize their games worth anything. They are terrible when it comes to that. But I do think that we could get a stable 30 frames per second, which for them is a big improvement over what they've been releasing. Yeah. Which is sad.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I have in mind.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think it's definitely a good thing that they're going to be doing cross-gen stuff. I'm not surprised at all that Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon LegenZ-A. It's funny when I was typing up Pokemon LegenZ-A earlier. Initially, I typed it as Pokemon Legends without the DS. I just LegenZ, LEGNZ. But anyway, that one I think is going to run as poorly as the first Pokemon Legends game did on the original Switch, and I think that theoretically they should be able to get at least a stable 30 frames per second and hopefully better visuals on the Switch 2. But regardless, I'm not at all surprised about Metroid Prime 4. Like I was telling people from the beginning, yes, this is running on the Switch, the base Switch. You know, Retro's already demonstrated that they can get a great looking Metroid game on the Switch running at 60 frames per second. You know, they can still do that with the Switch 2. I mean, they can do that with Metroid Prime 4. It's not going to be a problem. And so, yeah, I mean, it's obviously good news. I definitely do think that they're going to end up doing the same thing with the cartridges that they did with the 3DS. I think it's going to be exactly the same from that standpoint. I mean, obviously, you know, it's longer, but it's going to have that same notch so that it can't go into the regular Switch. It would be interesting to see, though, if they decide to just do a Switch version of the cartridge and then just when you insert it into a Switch 2, it just downloads updates or what have you. Or they have all the information on the cartridge, and then if you're playing it on a regular Switch, it will play a certain way, and then if you're playing it on the Switch 2, it will play a different way. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. But I don't know. It's hard to say what they're going to do. I will mention when I said that there would probably be ray tracing. To be clear about it, I'm not talking about like the kind of ray tracing you can get on PlayStation or on PC. I'm talking about just basically like a more or less an artificial DLSS ray tracing where it's there, but it's not like anything. I mean, it's impressive for the Switch, but it's not impressive when compared to other platforms. And it would be great though if they gave you the option to just keep it turned off, because some of us just don't like the performance hit you get from using ray tracing. But whatever. So, I guess beyond that, I'm glad that the time they're doing the Switch 2 Direct is when it is. It sucks for people who are on the West Coast, but for us, you know, 8 o'clock for me, 9 o'clock for you, that's not bad. I mean, it kind of, I kind of wish it was a little bit later in the day, more just because then it's easier to watch during the workday, but I'll figure something out to be able to watch it. What I may just end up having to do is, depending on the day, or depending on how busy it is that day, I may have to just like completely avoid anything on YouTube and everything until after it's done, and then watch it completely blind, because I do really want to watch it and, you know, be able to not have anything spoiled ahead for me. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. There is theoretically, there's been rumors of a Nintendo Direct that's just focused on the Switch 1 during February. Basically just announcing any remaining games. And my guess is that if they do actually do something like that this month, then it's just going to be, they'll show games and they'll say this is coming to Switch 1 that will be compatible with Switch 2. But obviously they're not going to show any Switch 2 gameplay or anything like that. They'll just basically say this will also be playable on the Switch 2. Because it's like the cat's out of the bag. There's no reason they can't say that. So and then maybe we'll finally get announcements of things like the Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remasters and Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, stuff like that. Hopefully as a combo pack in both situations so that I can actually not feel like I'm getting ripped off. I mean, granted, if Prime 2 and 3 were as good of remasters as Prime 1 was, I'm more willing to spend the extra money on it, because I think that that's much more worth it, because Prime Remastered was really well done. I mean, it was excellent. But if it's just basically like HD textures on Prime 2 and 3, it better be a combo pack, because otherwise I'm not spending $60. I mean, I'm not spending $60 a game for sure. I'd be willing to spend 60 for a combo pack, but that would be the only way. Anyway, that's all I have on that. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, sir. Oh, now actually one question though.
Mhm.
Wasn't the Prime Remastered 40 at least?
Yes, it was, but that was so yeah, I guess theoretically if they did them individually it would be 40 apiece. But yeah, I guess they really couldn't get away with doing more than that. I think it might have been cheaper digitally than it was physical though, if I remember right. It's been a little while. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, I know that I was super tempted to get it digitally. That day I was like, no, they already said it's coming out physically next week. I'll just pre-order. I guess maybe it was 2 weeks. I can't remember. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Start us off.
All right. So my recommendation, in light of the topic of this evening, I'm going to recommend the Bloodborne OST. It's a very great soundtrack, and I mean, this is also the first Souls game that had a live orchestra perform the music, and it's definitely beautiful. So I definitely recommend listening to it, and in particular, I recommend Ludwig the Accursed, Ludwig the Holy Knight, because that track is just extraordinary, and I really love that so much. So definitely listen to the Bloodborne soundtrack. It's great.
Nice. Yeah, I typically try my best to avoid listening to soundtracks before I played the game, because I feel like it kind of spoils the surprise sometimes of coming across those songs in context. Like Persona 5 soundtrack especially, there's one particular song that comes up in context. I mean, when in context, it's just like, wow, this song is amazing. I love this song. And if I hadn't gotten it in its original context, I still would have loved it, but not nearly as much as I did getting it in context. And yeah, so like, so I remember I pre-ordered the Persona 5 Royal soundtrack, the physical version, before I actually played Persona 5 Royal, and I didn't listen to it until I had actually played the game, and then it was like, okay, yeah, so now I can appreciate it even more. I did grab the Rebirth soundtrack though. I did that last week before we recorded, or before I edited the podcast, so I could include some of the songs from that. But that's been great so far, what I've listened to. I haven't listened to all of it because, once again, I want to hear the songs in context, but I at least grabbed some of the ones that I'd already heard in game for that. So very good stuff. Well, my recommendations, I have a couple. One of those is going to be one that I've recommended before, but is still well worth recommending, and it's because I had some tonight and it was amazing, and that is Japanese curry. Make some Japanese curry. It's easy, it's delicious, and it's so good. But additionally, I also want to recommend playing Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Whether you decide to play them on PC, on a standard console, on the Switch, on the Steam Deck. I mean, I personally think Steam Deck and PC are obviously the best ways to play, but you can still get 60 frames per second playing on the other consoles. In fact, I believe, at least with Xbox, you can get 120 FPS on those games, including Series S. Or at least with Doom 2016, you can get 120 FPS. PS4 and our PS5 is locked to 60 because they didn't update it, even though it could easily do 120. I don't see any reason why it couldn't, because it's very well optimized. I mean, I haven't played Eternal yet on my desktop. I mean, I have it installed, I just haven't played it yet. Because most of the times when I've been playing on my desktop, I've just been playing Rebirth. But I probably will try that out this weekend and see how it runs. I don't expect it to run quite as well as 2016, but could be surprised by that. Because those games are just very, very well optimized, so it is very good at what they do. That's what I got for recommendations. So give me your dissuasion or dissuasions.
All right. Yeah. So I had one, but I changed it. So I'm trying to. All right. So I guess I'm gonna put this on the fly. So my dissuasion is do not run Doom 2016 on the Steam Deck using the OpenGL API. That has been buggy before in the past for me, and when I went back to playing it before, it was still buggy. Use Vulkan instead, because that's what has given me a consistent 60 and even higher frame rates on the Steam Deck.
Yep.
So, and I mean, also, it might also apply to a Linux in general, but I don't know. I haven't played it on my PC yet, but I just know that in general for the Steam Deck, OpenGL has not been good, but Vulkan has. So definitely change the setting from OpenGL to Vulkan.
Good advice. All right, well, my dissuasion is going to be do not waste your time arguing with fanboys. It's not worth the effort. You are not going to change their minds. There's a big difference between arguing with someone who's a fan of something and a fanboy, because fans can be reasoned with, and you can have a rational discussion even if you disagree. But fanboys, it doesn't matter what you try to bring to them. There was a fanboy that was saying, who had commented on Alex's port review of Spider-Man 2 for PC, and was saying that, oh, the PS5 Pro is equal to a 4070. And I'm trying to explain to him why that's definitely not true. It's like, he says, well, I've watched all these videos that show that it's basically the same thing. And it's like, no, it's not. And I mean, this particular fanboy, like, he has a PC that's easily more powerful than mine. But it's like, just because you have a more powerful PC doesn't mean you understand how the technology works. And trust me, the 4070 is not the same as the PS5 Pro. They are very different. And I was trying to explain how it is that these games typically achieve quote-unquote 4K. Because there are some games on PlayStation that actually can achieve 4K. Native 4K rendering and all that. But there aren't many. Most of them, they start at a lower resolution, sometimes a much lower resolution. And then they, first of all, I mean, on like the base PS5, they just simply scale the image. They stretch it out so that it fits the 4K display. And because they typically are high detail, you can't necessarily notice that it looks bad, per se. That's very minimal in terms of the resources it requires, all that. And then there's the AI upscaling, which, DLSS, FSR, PSSR, XeSS, that sort of thing. That's a completely different thing. And I was trying to explain, okay, these are not the same. I think initially he wasn't understanding what I was saying because he was thinking that I was talking about the AI upscalers, and it's like, that's not what I'm talking about. But saying that an upscaled image is the same as a card running a game at native 4K, they're just not the same at all. It's completely different. And even though it might look similar and have similar performance, they're still not the same. So anyway, I argued about this for a little bit, and I realized why am I wasting my time on this? I'm just obsessing over something. I'm not going to change this person's mind. They're convinced that they're right and that I'm an idiot. I know that they're wrong, and that they are at best misinformed and possibly also an idiot. But more likely than not, they're just misinformed and they're deeply entrenched in their mindset. But anyway, don't argue with fanboys. It's not worth the time. Just let it go and move on. Let them live in their delusions. If they're not reasonable enough to actually listen, don't argue with them. Okay, that's it.
Very good advice.
All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@ I am Xeracon. No new content from me this past week. Still am uncertain about like what to put up next. I have one thing that I'll be putting up later on, but that depends on when I finish one game I'm working on. So we'll see when that happens. But yeah, last thing I've put up was the Metroid Prime / Batman Beyond intro. But yeah, nothing else since then.
All right. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. I haven't put anything new up this week, but I have a few things in mind that are more or less in the works. Some of them I'm still just more brainstorming. There are 2 comparisons that I am working towards. I just haven't had a chance to record anything yet. So it's a TBA on when that's going to actually be coming for either of those. There's another video, though, that I've been brainstorming about a lot, and I'm planning to do. I just am not sure on timing yet because I want to make sure that I'm very thorough, take lots of notes, and that the information I present is presented in the best way possible. And that is a console versus PC video. Now, my intention with this, and I intend to also, say this pretty much at the beginning, is that I'm not getting into power discussions because that's not really the focus of this, because the power disparity is going to vary drastically depending on what type of PC a person has versus not has. There's lots of debates about whether the PS5 Pro matches certain graphics cards or not, and that's neither here nor there, because ultimately what I want to talk about is just giving true and honest feedback without letting my bias get in the way, in terms of saying this is what's true of PC, this is what's true of console, and explaining how the two differ from the perspective of someone who actually understands how both work, versus having the typical video like that where you have a console fanboy talking about PC gaming and actually having no idea what they're talking about. And so anyway, it's something that I've been brainstorming a lot about what kind of things I want to say. I definitely want to make sure that I do the best I can to be as fair to both sides as possible, and more just talk about what the benefits are of one versus the other, what are the cons of one versus the other, and just keep it to facts. And I mean, while at the same time still saying, hey, I prefer PC, and I've listed all the reasons why I think PC is better personally, but there are advantages to doing console, and that may be something that for you personally, that's something you look at and you're like, okay, I want to do a console, and that's perfectly fine. We should all be able to enjoy these hobbies, just understand what the actual differences are from as much of a balanced perspective as possible, and that's basically my goal behind this. So my guess is that I'll probably still have, I don't know. I mean, one of the reasons why I don't want to get into the power debate of things, apart from the fact that, obviously power varies quite a lot, is because of the fact that I don't want to have console fanboys. I mean, I know there's going to be some in the comments for sure, but I don't want them to just be like trying to debate with me about how much, how powerful a console is, or, for the money, whatever. Um, it's just like, I just don't want to get into that. I just want to talk about the honest differences and looking at it in a fair manner for both sides so that it can be a real, actual helpful video instead of just being fanboy on one side or the other. Because regardless of where I stand, which I'm not going to like say, oh, you know, I'm not a PC fanboy, or, you know, like I'm not a PC guy, you know, I like both equally. Like I'll be real about it, but I'm still going to do my best to just be balanced on it and not bring the power aspect into the discussion. More talk about the differences in terms of like how PC gives you a lot more options, a lot more choice in how you run the games. You know, whether you want to run at a lower setting, if you want to use frame generation, if you don't want to use frame generation, if you know, where you can buy your games, where you buy, I mean, what types of games you buy. And, you know, consoles have their own advantages, particularly simplicity, but it's cheaper initially, but costs more in the long run. I mean, there's a lot of variety on both sides, and I just want to try to be factual more than anything else in how I address the topic. While at the same time, you're saying, obviously, this is my opinion, and, you know, you're welcome to go play consoles. If that's all you want to do, have at it. Enjoy your consoles. Enjoy playing video games. This is a great hobby that all of us have. Let's just enjoy games and not war about it. Just enjoy it. Anyway, I'm done. So, anyway, going beyond that, I do have a YouTube gaming channel, a YouTube cooking channel called Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. And I haven't put out any new recipes. I am intending to film at least one, maybe two recipes this week. It's kind of just going to depend on time. But I'm hoping to do... Well, I'm planning to do a pork roast, a smoked pork roast. Very simple recipe. It doesn't have to be smoked, but I'm going to smoke it because I can. And then also going to do a Thai curry chicken pizza, which I made last week, and it was really good. And it needs a couple of minor tweaks, but I'm going to make it again on Friday and planning to film it when I do that. So that should be good. And then, of course, we have the channel for the podcast, YouTube at the Orange Box Podcast, as well as the Clips channel for the podcast at the Orange Box Pod Clips. And the podcast itself goes live, video version goes live 7 a.m. every Friday morning at the 7 a.m. Central Time. The audio only version, which is up on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and others that I can't remember off the top of my head. That goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday. And let's see here. Yeah, there's not much else to say. I mean, I guess just know with the video version, you can, of course, see our beautiful faces if you so desire, but also you can see clips from games we've been playing and everything else. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as the audio version. You hear only and don't see. So, but that should be everything on that front. I guess, lastly, if you want to contact us, you can send us an email, theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet us on X at theorangeboxpod, or you can comment on the video version of the podcast, and we'll be sure to get back to you one way or the other. If you have a question for us that you'd like us to read on the podcast, of course, if you submit that, then we will happily do that, and we will discuss. So, but even if you never reach out to us, even if you're not even listening right now, which obviously, if you're hearing this, you're listening, but we're still going to talk for 2.5 hours every week because this is how we catch up from week to week. This week, of course, is a shorter episode than usual because we didn't have quite as much to talk about, or we just didn't talk as much as we usually do. But nevertheless, that's something we just do, and it's a good way for us to catch up each week, as well as a way to just have an outlet to talk about these things. So that is everything I have. Last chance. Any final thoughts from you?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zaracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, it's Groundhog Day again. Orange Box Podcast out.